Exactly what we're diving into today. We've got this really interesting source, an article called Act Before You Are Ready.
Okay.
And it really cuts right to the heart of that whole struggle.
So our mission here for this deep dive is basically to pull out the best bits, the most useful insights from this article to help you, listening right now, face down that perfectionism, that fear, and just, start the thing you've been putting off.
Yeah, and the author gets quite personal about it. They talk about being 43, looking at these really seasoned creators and still battling that not good enough feeling, that anxiety of, oh man, I'm falling behind.
That's so relatable, though. Anyone who's ever looked at someone else already doing the thing they dream of doing knows that exact feeling.
Totally. It's like, okay, wow, even folks further down the road feel this. But then the source talks about a couple of really powerful mindset shifts that help them break out of that cycle.
Okay, like what?
Well, the first one is something often linked with Stoicism, negative visualization.
Negative visualization. Sounds a bit grim.
It does on the surface, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's about imagining yourself, say, much older, maybe 80 years old.
Right.
And thinking about the abilities you have right now that you might not have then.
Okay. So less about being morbid, more about perspective.
Exactly. It's bringing that potential future loss into today to spark a different kind of awareness. Think about just being able to run or having all your teeth or seeing clearly. Imagining losing those things at 80.
Makes you really appreciate having them now.
Precisely. And the way the source frames it is fascinating. It's not meant to be gloomy at all. It's a technique to spark real, genuine gratitude for what you can do today.
It forces you to realize that the things you might just take for granted now are actually tomorrow's treasures.
Yes. And if you appreciate these things, well, doesn't it follow that you should probably use them?
That really lands. If I have this ability now, why am I letting it just sit there by not starting? Okay, so it's not pessimism. It's radical appreciation spurring action.
You got it. And that realization often connects to the second big shift the source mentions.
Okay.
And they talk about having this dream for them. It was starting a Substack and feeling genuinely scared about it.
Right. The fear factor.
Yeah. But the insight was, if the dream feels scary, that probably means it's a big enough dream. It's likely worth going after.
Oh, I like that. Fear means it matters.
Yeah. If it didn't challenge you, it might not be pushing you enough, towards real growth.
Okay, that makes sense. The author actually mentions setting this self-imposed barrier, didn't they?
They did. They decided they wouldn't start their Substack until they'd written 300 Stoic journal entries.
Wow, 300. I mean, that sounds like serious dedication. Discipline, even.
On the surface, yes. But this raises a really crucial question the source digs into. Was waiting for 300 entries really discipline? Or was it maybe just a very elaborate excuse? A kind of procrastination, maybe, that was actually fueled by that fear we just talked about?
A clever way to avoid the scary part starting.
Could be. The source talks about that internal pull to start, saying it wasn't just like random excitement. They called it an internal calibration, a signal that, yeah, despite the fear, now was probably the time.
Okay, so we've got reframing fear and using this negative visualization for gratitude and action. But the source goes deeper into why we wait, right? It kind of dismantles the whole idea that ready is even a real thing.
Yeah, it calls ready a delusion. It argues that the feeling of not being ready is mostly emotional. And then our logical brain jumps in to rationalize it, cooking up all these seemingly good reasons for delay.
So our logic is basically backing up our fear, giving it cover.
Often, yeah. Instead of challenging the feeling, it builds a case for staying put. And to understand this sort of self-deception, the article talks about 3 main ways we tend to align ourselves, how we orient our actions and thoughts and feelings.
3 ways of alignment. Okay.
And it suggests only one of them really leads to proper growth and connection.
All right, lay them on us. What are the 3?
Okay, first up, emotional alignment. This is basically doing what feels good right now, prioritizing immediate comfort.
Like hitting the snooze button.
Exactly like hitting snooze. Your logic might even back you up. Oh, you deserve the rest. The source points out this gives you, temporary peace.
Sure feels like it at the time.
Right. But it can kind of detach you from reality, from your bigger goals, and often leads to regret down the line.
Definitely been there. Okay, what's number 2?
Second is action alignment. This is more about being driven by impulse or habit. You do the thing first. And then you use your feelings and logic to justify it afterwards.
Like grabbing that extra cookie and then saying, oh, well, I needed the energy boost.
Precisely. You're reacting based on the action, not really guiding the action based on deeper values or goals.
Yeah.
Gives you that short-term comfort maybe or familiarity, but it lacks real internal direction.
So the action comes first, the reason follows.
Got it. Then there's the third one. The source calls it the hardest, but also the most powerful. Rational alignment.
Rational alignment. Sure.
This is about consciously bringing together your values, your actions, your emotions, and the social situation around you.
So really thinking it through, acting from principle.
Yeah, acting from a place of like reasoned principle, aligning your internal self, what you truly value, your actual goals with what you do externally and your responsibilities.
That sounds like, well, living with real intention. Integrity, maybe.
It is. The source says it creates this deep internal consistency, and it also links to social responsibility. It helps you be in sync with yourself and the world.
But it's the hardest, you said.
Yeah, because it takes constant effort, self-awareness, and it often means doing things that don't feel easy or comfortable in the moment, resisting that immediate gratification.
Okay, so going back to the 300 entries thing. Under this framework, that sounds a lot like maybe emotional alignment, avoiding the discomfort of starting, or maybe even action alignment, like habitual procrastination, but dressing it up logically as discipline or preparation.
That's exactly the kind of questioning the source encourages. And the author actually does a very concrete cost-benefit analysis of starting their writing now versus waiting for those 300 entries.
Oh, interesting. Like really weighing the pros and cons.
Yeah, forcing themselves to look at it objectively. So, starting now, what are the pros? Well, immediate feedback, for one more. Putting work out there lets you learn right away.
Right. You get that compounding effect of learning from day one.
Exactly. And it forces you to face reality, maybe face some judgment, which, yeah, is scary. But it also means you learn and iterate way faster. Acting is just a much quicker teacher than preparing alone in your room.
Okay, fair point. But surely there are downsides to starting when you feel, rough around the edges.
Oh, absolutely. The source lists the cons of starting early, too. Your ideas might still be kind of half-baked.
Yeah, immature.
Right. Your style, your structure, maybe they're still developing. And there's that very real fear of just adding more noise online with stuff that isn't quite polished yet.
Those sound like pretty solid reasons to wait, actually.
They do seem legitimate, yeah. But then the source flips it and looks at the cons of waiting for that arbitrary 300-entry milestone. And these are significant.
Okay, what are they?
Well, the big one is that delay can just absolutely murder your motivation, your passion. The source uses this really powerful phrase. Perfectionism is the grave of dreams.
Wow. Okay.
That lack of urgency just slowly saps your enthusiasm. And maybe the most critical point,
Yeah.
the longer you wait, the more room there is for doubt to creep in.
And that doubt can lead to just giving up entirely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Paralysis, the project gets abandoned. The source gives this stark warning. Many good ideas die waiting.
Oof. Many good ideas die waiting. That's a bit of a gut punch.
Isn't it? So when you weigh that immediate feedback and learning against the very real possibility of the whole project just fizzling out.
Yeah. What did the author decide in the end after that analysis?
They decided to ditch the waiting game. They took what they called a middle path.
A middle path?
Yeah, not waiting for the perfect 300 entries, but starting now, fully acknowledging it wouldn't be perfect. They chose to use a platform like Medium as a sort of testing ground.
Ah, okay. A place to share ideas, get feedback, refine things in public.
Exactly. They realized that all that journaling they'd done wasn't wasted time. It was training. But the whole point of the training wasn't just endless preparation.
It was to be able to actually do the thing.
Right. Which brings us to another really crucial distinction the source makes. It helps clarify why starting, even imperfectly, is so valuable. It's the difference between writing and publishing.
Okay, writing versus publishing. How does the source define those?
So writing, they argue, is primarily for self-alignment. It's the internal work. Recording your thoughts, reflecting, processing feelings, growing personally, strengthening your own logic.
Making sense of things for yourself.
Exactly. Becoming more genuine, more internally consistent. Often the most important reader for your writing is just you.
Okay. And publishing?
Publishing is framed as being for world alignment. It's taking that internal work, that aligned self, and actually connecting it with the outside world.
Right. Putting your thoughts, your creations out there.
Yeah. And the idea is it shouldn't just be driven by impulse or, chasing trends. It should serve a deeper purpose, contributing something, connecting, making your internal reality interact with the external world.
So even starting small, publishing something that isn't perfect, that's still achieving this vital world alignment step that just waiting around prevents.
That's the argument. The source concludes that every single act of publishing, even the messy ones, is actually training. Training in virtue, in rationality.
How so?
Because it's an act of aligning yourself with the world based on your internal values, your principles, rather than just doing what feels comfortable or what you've always done.
Right, stepping out of that emotional or action alignment rut.
Exactly.
Right.
And crucially, this training, this small act of putting your reasoned, valued self out there, that's enough. That's enough to start. You don't need 300 perfect entries before you can begin that training.
Okay, wow. So, listener, this really brings it back to you, doesn't it? Think about that project, that idea, that thing you're waiting to start. What's your version of 300 entries? What are those specific reasons, those milestones, those feelings of not quite good enough that you're telling yourself need to be sorted before you're ready?
And maybe try doing that cost-benefit analysis the source suggests, but for your situation. What are the real pros and cons of waiting versus just starting now, even if it's imperfect?
Yeah, are the reasons you're giving yourself truly rational steps towards the goal? Or are they maybe, just maybe, clever, logical justifications for an emotional fear? Fear of judgment, fear of discomfort, fear of not being perfect.
Because if waiting really is often just that rationalized fear, that perfectionism in disguise, think about what you're missing.
What valuable feedback, what crucial learning, what potential connections are you losing out on simply by not starting today?
What ideas, what potential contributions are maybe dying while you wait to feel ready?